This is your dose of daily market wisdom with master trader Nick Santiago. Starting from humble beginnings, Nick has been beating the markets for over 2 decades. He shares with you his take on the profitable trades that will have you moving towards financial freedom in no time at all. To see an in-depth review of his track record and much more, go to inthemoneystocks.com. Welcome. This is your daily dose of daily market wisdom with master trader Nick Santiago. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 12/16/22, show number 449. Well, markets have had a tough week, Nick.
You know, Kerry, the markets have had a very tough week. And, options expiration is always a turbulent time, especially when you come into this quadruple witching options X. But this week we had the CPI on Tuesday. That was a huge gap up and a big sell-off. Then the Fed announcement on Wednesday. The market tried to stabilize, couldn't really do it, sold off a little bit. Yesterday, we went back to reality. We had a really, really good sell-off. And then today, we're selling off again. So it's been a very, very tough week for the major indexes, and they're under pressure again this morning.
All right. Well, hey, that's Options X. I read that there was $4 trillion worth of options expiring today.
Yes, that's what I saw as well. And again, it should really be a crazy close today in the final hour because you're going to get some rebalancing. You'll get stocks moving in into one index and others moving out. So if you're sticking around this afternoon, you want to be a little bit careful there. It could be a little bit of a wild close at around 3:30 to 4 o'clock.
All right. So you're saying now the financial stocks are the sector to follow because that will really tell you what the Fed's doing and what's going to happen.
Well, one thing I learned at my membership about a week or so ago, maybe even a little bit longer, I said the financial stocks are no longer acting well. In fact, it was right around the end of November. I said there's something not right. And then we started to tumble right around the beginning of December. But if you take a look at a stock like Bank of America, this stock is now trading below its daily chart, 200 moving average, 50-day moving average, 100-day moving average. It has fallen off of a cliff. JP Morgan looks like the best out of the group right now. That's holding up the best. But Wells Fargo looks terrible. Citigroup looks terrible. Goldman Sachs starting to roll over now. Even today, Goldman, according to a report out of Bloomberg, said that they could lay off 4,000 workers. So if things were so hot, I don't think they would be laying off 4,000 people at this stage of the game. And then if you look at some of these ETFs, like the KBE, which is the large bank ETF, that thing has completely broken down. KRE, the regional bank ETF, that is completely broken down. And when I did some study on these charts, Kerry, they tell me they're going to go lower in due time, and a lot lower at that. So, there's an old saying in this business, as the financial goes, so goes the market.
Yeah, well, it used to be what's good for GM is good for the country, but that's no longer the case. We know that. What about energy? Energy's been all over the place this week.
This week, energy has been all over the place. When you look at crude oil, it's coming under pressure today, down about 3%, but it had a really, really good move until yesterday. Yesterday pulled back a little bit. So energy continues to remain very, very choppy. I was recently in nat gas. I was recently in oil, and I haven't gotten back into these trades. These are trades I want to get back into, but they seem to bounce ahead of levels, and I think that has a lot to do with options expiration. But today we have nat gas down about 6%, oil down about 3%. So I'll be watching the chart patterns on these closely over the next week or so, and hopefully trying to find an entry into them.
All right. And gold is catching a bid again today.
Yeah, gold is the one bright spot here, shining again. Gold got hit yesterday pretty hard, just so everybody understands. Gold was down pretty significantly. I think it was down 3%. But today it's upticking up about 0.6%. The one thing I will tell you about the gold chart, though, it is still holding up very, very well. It has not violated its uptrend, and that's what you want to keep an eye on. Right now, gold still looks poised for another move to the upside. Again, I don't think it's going to go much higher than 1875, 1870. I think that's kind of the top for gold, but it's still holding up pretty well at this time.
All right. Interesting. And silver is pretty much flat today. Silver taking a breather, huh?
Yes. Yeah, silver's taking a break. Silver needs to pull back. I mean, it has just had, an amazing move. It went from basically 17 to 22, and that occurred in 2 months. So now you have to sit back and let silver pull back. But, as soon as it gives me that buy signal, Kerry, I will be all over silver once again. Right now, I'm just sitting on the sidelines as I have taken all my silver profits off the table.
Like white on rice. And finally, we're looking at Bitcoin, and it has seen better days.
Yeah, the Bitcoin saga continues. All the cryptos are weak today. Bitcoin trading down by nearly 3%, back below that 17,000 level. As you know, it had been rallying this week. I believe Bitcoin futures got as high as 18,400, and now back below 17, sitting at 16,900. The one thing I will say, Kerry, and we've talked about it on here over and over again, I'm expecting this thing to trade down to around 11,500. Remember, the larger time frame is very, very weak, and that signals more downside. So again, you're going to get these little pops here and there. But if you're nimble, maybe you could play that. But if you're not, I would just leave it alone and let this thing continue its descent. Like I said, it's going down at least to 11,500, maybe 11,300.
All right. Well, hey, we called the top, you and I, when it hit to the day. You know that.
Yes, and a lot of different levels in between there as well. So that's what a lot of people don't realize too. When it hit the top, we said where the next bounce would be. When it rallied after that, we said where the next leg down would be. And again, we've been doing a pretty good job on that for two guys that don't know a thing about it.
Yeah, two guys who are ignorant about cryptocurrencies, right?
Yes.
Hey, but it's these other exchanges appear to be in trouble because it's a Ponzi scheme. Without having a reserve requirement, they could just take their coins that they're holding and either bet them in the futures or loan them out there and lease them or whatever they do, right? There's no protection here. Not that I think that the government's insurance FDIC protection is so wonderful and foolproof and that you'll never lose money because the government is backing it. But we don't even have that for the kleptos.
Very true. But this was something that was built on decentralized, right? It was going to be the anti-dollar. It was going to be, the alternative to the dollar. It was being billed as the next great thing, no middleman. Well, now we find out unhackable, right? What was that one? Unhackable. Now we find out all of this stuff is not true. This stuff is hackable. The middleman is always involved. They know everything you're doing. Blockchain has now been adopted by all the central banks. And on top of that, if you want to put a cherry on top of this pie, you have the central bank digital currency being rolled out in a 12-week pilot program right now. So again, I think that's ultimately the goal where they're going with all of this. And in my opinion, in a few years, Bitcoin and the rest of them will be a mere memory.
Very possible. It was always my concern from the beginning. The government was just not going to sit idly by and watch a competitor for their most sacred function, which is manipulating the currency, right?
That's it. I mean, the government has never let anyone compete against the dollar. I mean, they've always anybody that minted coins for their own personal use. I mean, government has not allowed that, and I just don't see how government even sat by this long and let this go on unless they wanted it.
Yeah, watched people accept it, and then once the acceptance was there, then they march in and they take over. And that's what appears to be on the horizon here, Nick.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me, at least. I mean, I may not be able to put all the pieces together, but this Tom Clancy novel is certainly looking that way.
It's definitely unfolding for sure. Well, that is it for today. Make sure you go over to Nick's site, inthemoneystocks.com. See how he's beaten the averages for decades. The Twitter feeds at ITMS, at Nick Santiago 01, at Kerry Lutz. Email kl@kerrylutz.com. Post your comments to the YouTube channel. We will respond. Nick, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Have a great weekend, Kerry.